There's a reason you still check under the bed sometimes, even as an adult. A reason a dark hallway makes your pulse tick up slightly. It's not childish. It's not irrational. It's 300,000 years of survival programming, and it's still fully installed in your brain right now. By the end of this video, you'll understand exactly why humans are wired to fear the dark, what your eyes and brain are actually doing in those first few seconds after the lights go out, why children feel it more intensely than adults, and why, even with electricity, security systems, and smartphones, that primal unease never fully goes away. Most people assume fear of the dark is something kids simply grow out of, like a phase. But that's not quite right. The fear doesn't disappear as you age. It just gets managed, buried under routine, and rationalized away until the power goes out. Here's what's actually happening physically. Human eyes are built for daylight. Our color-detecting cone cells need bright light to function, so the moment darkness falls, your vision shifts almost entirely to black and white rod cells, cells that are extremely sensitive to motion and shape, but terrible at detail. In other words, in the dark, your eyes are guessing. And guessing brains do something specific. They fill in gaps. This is called pareidolia, the brain's tendency to find familiar patterns, especially faces and figures, in random or incomplete information. A coat on a chair becomes a shape. A shadow becomes a silhouette. Your brain isn't malfunctioning here. It's doing exactly what it evolved to do, because for most of human history, that guess mattered. Big cats hunted at night. So did hyenas, wolves, and other predators specifically adapted to see in low light, while humans, without claws, without night vision, without much speed, were dangerously exposed after dark. An early human who assumed every shadow might be a threat and prepared for it survived more often than one who assumed it was nothing. There's another layer to this most people don't think about: sound. In darkness, hearing quietly takes over as your dominant sense, which is exactly why a random creak at 2 a.m. feels so much louder and more threatening than the exact same sound in broad daylight. Your brain isn't imagining the sound. It's just processing it with far less competing visual information, so it gets amplified in your attention. This is where fire changes everything. Once early humans controlled fire, night stopped being pure exposure. A circle of firelight became the first safe zone in human history, a boundary between what you could see and control and the darkness beyond it that you couldn't. Groups didn't just gather around fire for warmth. They gathered because fire meant survival odds tilted back in their favor. This also explains something that puzzles a lot of parents. Why fear of the dark peaks so hard in early childhood, usually between ages 2 and 6. At that age, a child's imagination is developing faster than their ability to logically rule things out. They can vividly picture a monster in the closet, but they don't yet have the reasoning skills to confidently tell themselves it isn't real. Adults have that skill. Small children mostly don't yet. Underneath all of this sits the amygdala, the brain's threat detection center. In darkness, with less visual information coming in, the amygdala doesn't calm down. It actually becomes more active, scanning harder for danger to compensate for what your eyes can't confirm. Your heart rate ticks up. Your senses sharpen. This is the exact same fight or flight response your ancestors relied on, just triggered now by an empty hallway instead of a real predator. Nearly every culture in history built some kind of ritual around this same fear. Night watches, bedtime prayers, guardian spirits, lanterns hung by doorways, stories told specifically to explain and contain the unknown of nighttime. These weren't superstition for its own sake. They were early humans' way of managing a very real, very old anxiety long before anyone understood the neuroscience behind it. And this fear isn't even uniquely human. Other primates, chimpanzees, baboons, several monkey species, show measurable stress responses in darkness too, especially in unfamiliar environments. It's a pattern that runs deep across an entire evolutionary lineage, not just our one species folklore. So why does the feeling linger into adulthood, even once you know logically there's no predator waiting in your apartment? Because the amygdala doesn't fully listen to logic. It responds to sensory uncertainty. And darkness is still, biologically speaking, sensory uncertainty, no matter how many locks are on your door. Modern safety doesn't erase 300,000 years of wiring. It just outpaces it. And it's more common than most people admit. Surveys on adult fears consistently find a meaningful percentage of adults report at least occasional unease in total darkness. Not full-blown phobia, just that background hum of alertness. It rarely comes up in conversation, mostly because admitting it feels embarrassing. But biologically, it's about as embarrassing as flinching at a loud noise. Interestingly, modern life has quietly rewired part of this equation too. Most humans today have never actually experienced true, ancient-level darkness, the kind with zero artificial light. Streetlights, screens, and city glow mean our eyes rarely fully adapt to night vision anymore. Which means when the power really does go out, the darkness can feel even more disorienting than it did to your ancestors, who lived in it every single night of their lives. In a strange way, we've just replaced the ancient campfire with new versions of the same idea: a nightlight in a kid's room, the glow of a phone screen when you can't sleep, a porch light left on out of habit more than necessity. Different tools, same ancient instinct. Create a small circle of light you can control, and the world outside it feels a little less threatening. None of this means the fear is silly or something you should be embarrassed about. It means your brain is running a very old, very effective survival protocol, one that kept your ancestors alive long enough for you to exist at all. The unease isn't a flaw in the system. It's proof the system still works exactly as designed in an environment it was never built for. So next time a dark room gives you that small flicker of alertness, you'll know exactly where it's coming from. Not weakness, not imagination, just 300,000 years of programming quietly checking the shadows for you. If you want more videos digging into why your ancient brain still runs the show, subscribe. There's a lot more buried in there. And tell me in the comments, what's the one thing that still gets you, even as an adult, in the dark? I'll see you in the next one.